Did you know that all elephants living today are actually one species? But their ancestors were several different animals. We will tell you how the elephant went from being an ordinary mammal to the largest land animal in the world. Brace yourself. The facts ahead are really shocking. Before they were elephants, what was the first elephant like? Scientists have finally managed to find out what the ancestors of modern elephants looked like. They published their findings in the journal PNAS. So it turns out that the ancestors of elephants were not at all like the huge animals we are used to seeing today. They more closely resembled a tiny shrew. By the way, this means that the elephant is not a descendant of the dinosaur. Despite its impressive size, it's only about 2 inches long, which is roughly 5 centimeters. But how did such a small creature turn into an elephant over time? To find out, scientists decided to use special X-ray technology to examine the fossilized remains of ancient mammals found in Kenya. As it turned out, the elephant's direct ancestor is a previously unknown species which the scientists have called mammoth. It was about the size of a small dog and had horns on its head. And no, it wasn't a unicorn. One horn actually consisted of 2 fused bones. In addition, the researchers discovered that the ancestor of the elephant didn't have a trunk. Okay, so now we know what the elephant's ancestor looked like. But how did it turn into an elephant? Elephant without trunk? Is it possible? Well, here it is. This is a megalodon, an extinct genus of mammal that lived in Africa about 10 million years ago. It's also considered the direct ancestor of modern elephants. These animals were about the size of modern-day African elephants. However, instead of a trunk, they had 2 elongated tusks connected by a thin membrane. Moreover, these creatures had 4 toes on each foot, and their ears were much smaller than those of their descendants. How did elephants become so big? After a megalodon came the Gomphitherium, which was the last common ancestor of all modern elephants. These animals already looked more like elephants, except they still had 4 toes on each foot, unlike their descendants who had 5 toes. In addition, Gomphithers had no distinct neck, and their heads seemed to grow directly out of their shoulders. What's the reason for such enormous size? Scientists believe that during the Miocene epoch, when the first elephants appeared, there was a so-called adaptive radiation of mammals. That's when mammals began to grow rapidly. Most likely this happened because of a drop in temperature. As a rule, warm-blooded animals suffer from overheating, but mammals have fur that helps them keep cool. What did the elephant look like 10 million years ago? In fact, the elephant has changed very little over the past 10 million years. It's hard to believe, but even 10 million years ago, the elephant looked almost exactly the same as it does today. Of course, back then there were no humans yet. The first representatives of our species appeared only about 300,000 years ago, and the elephant continued to evolve even after that. For example, according to some reports, the woolly mammoth, which we are all familiar with, is the result of crossing an African elephant with a mastodon. Woolly mammoths appeared only about 40,000 years ago, but as you can see for yourself, even the woolly mammoth looked pretty much like a modern elephant, only with longer, thicker hair. In general, it's hard to believe that the elephant has been changing so slowly. Just imagine how many wars, natural disasters, epidemics, and other events took place in the history of mankind over the past 40,000 years. And meanwhile, the elephant remained practically the same. Maybe it's for the best. After all, the elephant is already perfect as it is. Evolution of elephant in 30 seconds. Let's quickly sort through the most important stages in the evolution of the elephant. 55 million years ago, the first proboscideans appeared. They resembled modern pigs and were about the size of a domestic dog. Over time, they split into 2 branches. One led to the Gomphithers, and the other included the ancestors of modern elephants and mammoths. About 10 million years ago, the Gomphithers went extinct. Perhaps they simply could not compete with the growing elephants. And about 4 million years ago, the first African elephants appeared. During the Pleistocene epoch, the climate began to change, which led to the extinction of most large mammals. Many of them simply couldn't withstand the competition with the elephant. Some went extinct, while others survived to this day, including our species. But there were also new species. For example, woolly mammoths and the famous dwarf elephants. The latter appeared as a result of the island effect. When a population of animals is geographically isolated from other populations of the same species, it begins to evolve rapidly. As a result, the dwarf elephants became much smaller than their relatives on the mainland. Unfortunately, people hunted dwarf elephants almost to extinction. There are only 2 of them left in the world, and both live in zoos. Real history of elephant evolution. Do you want to know more about the elephant's evolutionary history? Then watch this video. There you will learn, for example, why the elephant's trunk is actually a modified nose and lip, and why do elephants have such large ears. In short, you'll learn everything you wanted to know about the elephant.